Hi everybody, this is Christa with the Big Family Homestead, and today I've got another bread recipe that you can put in your stack of recipes for many different things. That's what I love about this particular recipe. It can be used for many different things. So today I'm going to show you Amish white sandwich bread. It can be used for loaves, cinnamon rolls, monkey bread, dinner rolls, you name it, you can use it. So this recipe is, again, this is one you're going to want to hang on to. This is going to be your go-to recipe when folks say, "Hey, why don't you bring over dinner rolls?" You will get asked back every single time when you bring these dinner rolls. I've made thousands of these dinner rolls, let's just say that. So, and I know that seems like an exaggeration, but it's really not. I have literally made thousands of these dinner rolls, and folks ask me every time, "Oh, can you bring dinner rolls? Can you bring dinner rolls? Whenever we're going somewhere, bring dinner rolls, please, please, please." So this is going to be one for the books. This is going to be your top bread recipe that you'll go to. Now for ingredients, we're going to use 4 cups of water, 1 1/3 cup of sugar. Yes, I said 1 1/3 cup. Then we're going to use 3 tablespoons of dry active yeast, half a cup of butter, which is 1 full stick, 1 tablespoon of salt, and 10 to 12 cups of flour. I know that's a lot of flour, but I'll explain why. All right, the first step in our recipe is we're going to get our yeast proofing. So we've got 4 cups of warm water. It's not like too hot. It's warm, okay? You don't want it too hot. Too hot, you'll kill your yeast. Too cold, and your bread it will not activate your yeast. So we're gonna go ahead and dissolve our sugar. And I forgot my Dutch whisk over there. So I'm going to dissolve this so slowly. I'll be back when this is dissolved. All right, the sugar is now finally dissolved. I did use an organic cane sugar. That's why the water is a little yellow. You can use white sugar if you want. You can even use honey. It's just, you need a sweetener. And the amount of the sweetener is quite a bit. However, there's a reason for that. This sweetener in here makes it the best bread ever. I'm just telling you. So now we need 3 tablespoons of yeast, and what I'll do is I'll just sprinkle this right here on top, just like so, and I'll give it a little bit. Come on, get out of there. Wants to stick in there. I'm just going to whisk it just a little bit, just to kind of get all of the yeast wet. But I'm not going to overwork this. I'm just going to get this yeast wet, and then I'm going to leave it alone. So we're going to let this sit for just a couple minutes, and then we will start by adding our butter and then a little bit of flour and get this going. Okay, so give us a few minutes. Be back, and you'll see the yeast activated. All right, as you can see in our bowl here, it's starting to get bubbly. We're gonna go ahead and add our flour before we add our salt. We're gonna go ahead and add I'm gonna add like 5 cups of flour, just so that we can get it incorporated really nicely. I am fluffing up the flour so it's not a heavy scoop of flour. That's 3. I have a hard time counting and talking at the same time. So this is 4 and number 5. So then we're going to have, so we've got our flour on top of our bread, or on top of our water. No, we don't have bread yet. That's what we're working on, right? And 1 tablespoon of salt. You can use whatever salt you like. If you want it less salt, the salt actually isn't even really necessary. It does add some flavor to it, but it's not really necessary because this is more of a sweet bread. So we're just going to go ahead and mix this. So if you want to use less salt, by all means, you can use less salt. I just have found that the 1 tablespoon works for this particular recipe. Now, if this is too much of a batch for you, you can, well, our cookbook, our first cookbook, our family favorites, has this recipe in it. And I did double what was in the cookbook. So the original recipe is half of this, but I wanted to make a larger batch to show you the many different ways that we can manipulate this bread, which is awesome. And this video and all of the bread videos and all of the sauces and the preparedness videos, these videos are for us to help motivate you to do these things. To make things at home from scratch. We're not always going to be able to buy a loaf of bread from the store, or it's going to cost $8. Well, right now, I think a loaf of bread, the cheap loaf of bread is like maybe $1.50. Sometimes you can get them $1, but for good bread, it's $4 or $5. And it's ridiculous. And so say the artisan bread that I make, those are $4, $5, $6, $7, $8 already. And you can make them at home for less than 50 cents. So we're going to get this nice and smooth. And then we're going to add a cup of flour, probably 2 cups of flour next. I forgot to add the butter. I'm going to add the butter right now before I get any further. So I've got 1 stick of melted butter. If you want to use coconut oil, you can use coconut oil. If you want to use olive oil, go ahead. Vegetable oil, that's fine too. I've done that. I like the flavor of the bread, or I like the flavor of the bread with butter being used instead. So we're going to mix this in before we get any further. See what happens. This is not Hollywood, folks. This is not Food Network. Not at all. We don't have millions of people walking around doing everything for you. I'm doing this by myself. So get that incorporated. We're going to add some more flour. And again, we're fluffing this up so it's not heavy. There's 2. So we're at 7 cups of flour right now. And we will add between 10 and 12 cups, depending on the humidity in the air. It's a cool day. I do have the windows open. The heat is off because the sun is shining. It's absolutely gorgeous. So when the sun is shining in the house, it gets pretty warm in here. So I open up a couple of windows even when it's 40 degrees outside or even colder. Because I'm at that stage of my life where my thermostat is broken. And I need it cooler in the house, so, which is torment for the rest of the family. All right. Now, all right, we're going to add a couple more cups of flour. So 7, 8, 9. And we're going to keep going, and I'll keep incorporating flour, and we'll come back when it's close to being time to knead it. All right, now we need to dig in with our hands. I'm up to 11 cups of flour, and it's getting a little difficult to mix with the Dutch whisk. So now it's time to dig in, get your hands dirty. If you have a stand mixer that can hold this amount, great. That would be ideal because this is a lot of dough. I generally, when our KitchenAid was working, it's broken now. It needs a new worm drive or something like that. I can't remember. When it was working, I could put this amount in there, but it was struggling. That's probably why we need a new worm drive. So I can put this amount in our Bosch mixer, but I wanted to show you what it looks like when you're not using a mixer. So as you can see, it's taking all that 11 cups of flour in. There's still a little bit on the bottom, but that's okay. It will work into it. This is a little bit more difficult than the smaller amount, but that's okay. It's a good arm workout. Take your aggression out on the dough when you're irritated with what the government's doing or what your kids are doing or not doing. make this, get irritated with the bread. Oop, now it's getting a little sticky. I need to add a little bit more to the top. Not too much, because we don't want to add too much flour. Too much flour and it'll become a brick. And I've made plenty of bricks. And see, I'm just turning the bowl and just kind of folding it in half. I will put it out on the counter here in a minute because the bowl is getting a little small. So let me go ahead and move this and this and this. And let's just put let's put some flour on the counter here just so that it doesn't stick. And get this cleaned out, put it on top. There we go. Now this when it's on the counter, I basically just fold and turn, just like what I'm doing in the bowl, but I'm using my hand. And I'm sure that there is the professional way to do this. This is how I learned. So it works for me. You find what works for you. As long as the dough gets kneaded, we're fine. All right, so I've got a lot stuck to my hand still. Not, I guess I shouldn't say a lot. There's some. I'm gonna just kind of fold that in there. And we're just gonna keep kneading this until it's a nice smooth dough. It's just about there. So we only needed a little over 11 cups of flour. Oh, see, there was a spot there that had some dry flour in it, so we've got to mix that in. We don't want that. We don't want big pockets of flour in our dough. So we got to keep mixing. And we may need to add a little bit to the top here because it's just a touch sticky. But maybe if I just flip it around, you just got to work with it. There we go. It's that pushing and pulling, and that's what helps develop the gluten, not the gluten. I don't remember what Paul Hollywood calls it. I learned a little bit from him. Not too much. I don't watch a lot of TV, but a long time ago when I was learning how to make bread, I watched some of his videos. And I remember one video he said that his father taught him how to make bread, I believe. His father said, if you're not using both hands to knead the bread, then you only get paid half. So he always used both hands. All right. So we're good. It's a touch sticky, but that's okay. It's not, it's kind of holding its shape here. So we press down, it springs back up, which is what we want. So we're gonna put this into a greased bowl, cover it with plastic, and leave it sit for an hour in a warm place. And then we'll come back and I'll divide this out and show you what we're gonna do next. All right, folks, so we've waited our hour, and you can see I actually increased the size of the bowl. The bowl that I was using to knead it all in was half the size of this bowl. This makes a lot of dough, okay? So we're gonna divide, we're gonna put it onto a floured counter, lightly floured. We're gonna divide this into 4 pieces. So here we go. We're gonna move this over here, put some flour down on the counter. And then we're gonna put this out on the counter here. There's a lot of it, as you can see. So, since I greased the bowl, actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna knock this down here real quick because it is super big. I don't want it to flop all over the stove here. I don't have a very big workspace here to where you can see everything. So, there we go. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and put a little bit more flour on top, and we're gonna knead this just a little bit, not a lot. just so that it's not sticky. It was a little bit sticky just because it had been rising for so long, but that's okay. We're just going to knock the air out of this, and then we'll divide this into 4. Okay, so there we go. We got a nice, smooth, humongous ball of dough here. So we're just going to divide this into 4. And if you want to be not super picky, but exact with your measurements, you can measure these on a scale so that you have the exact amount of dough divided into 4. These should be about, I can't remember, maybe a pound and a half. I'll get my scale here in a second to tell you how big these are. But I'm just going to divide these out, put them in a, roll them over, and I'm going to set them over here where I've put some grease just so that it doesn't stick. And then I'll put some plastic over it while we work with all the different steps. And that way it doesn't dry out. But we'll get these rolled over here real quick. And then we'll get the scale and we'll see how much these weigh so that you know about how much this should be. So, be right back. Okay, so we've got our scale. I put a bowl on top just to keep the scale clean. And I've got it zeroed out with the weight of the bowl. So this one is 1 pound 7 ounces. So I was not too far off. 1 pound 7 ounces. Boy, I got it exact there, didn't I? This is 1 pound 9 ounces. And this one is a bit heavier. So I'm going to take some of this one off and some of the other one off because I want them to be just about the same. 1.8. There we go. 1.9. I may leave one of them slightly bigger. That one will be for the monkey bread. 1.8. Good. And actually, I'll just cut this into 2. That's 2 ounces. Done. We'll just live with that. It doesn't have to be an exact amount. So now what we're gonna do, I'll get this out of the way. Cover these with plastic so they don't dry out. Dried out dough is no fun. So we're gonna need these little globules in there. And then for this one, we're going to make this one. We're going to actually be done with this part of the video real quick. That way I can get the proper pans set up so that we can do the next step. So this first one we're going to go ahead and do as a loaf of bread. And I'll show you how I roll that. And then we'll move on to the next steps. So I'll be right back. Going to go get the loaf pan and the other pan set up so that we can do this relatively quick and easy. All right, so now we're going to roll our dough into a loaf for sandwich bread. So we're going to take our nice round dough ball here. We're going to flip it over to the ugly side. We don't want the ugly side. We want the pretty side up top. So we're going to take the ugly side. We're going to just press this out into a rectangle, just like so. Okay. Then we're going to take our short side. You can see this side is more rounded. This side is more straight. Either way, it doesn't honestly matter. Whatever side's facing you. Now we're going to roll it as though you were rolling a jelly roll. So we're just going to tuck and roll just like this, kind of tuck in the sides a little bit, just like so. All right. Then we've got our seam down here. Pinch it a little bit. Not necessary because the seam is going to go that side down. So we've got our greased loaf pan. We're going to take this and just plop this down in here. And then it's kind of, not really straight. So what it will fill the pan. But what I am going to do is I'm just going to kind of press it down into the pan, so that it's more the shape of the pan and not just this log that's in there, right? So We're gonna go ahead and now this is done. We're gonna let this rise for about a half an hour till it comes to the top of the pan, right up here. And we're gonna cover it with plastic so that it doesn't dry out. You don't want that hard crustiness on there. So we'll cover this with plastic and put it in a warm place. So that's all for right this minute. And we'll go ahead and go on to we're gonna wait 30 minutes while this is rising. And then after that, we will bake it for another 30 minutes. So, all right. So our loaf of bread has risen to the top of the pan, a little bit above the top of the pan, which is great. We've covered it with plastic. We kept it in a warm spot. We're heating up the oven to 350 degrees. And when that comes to temperature, then we will bake this bread for 30 minutes and then it will be done. We will take it out of the pan, let it rest, or let it cool on a cooling rack. And then we can devour it. Maybe. We might not wait until it's cool. We might eat it while it's still hot, which is usually what happens. This loaf of bread will be gone by the end of the day because the kids absolutely love this. Our loaf of bread is finished. So we're going to take this out of the oven. Oh boy, look at that. Beautifully golden brown. Don't drop it. That would be bad. Don't drop it. Beautifully golden brown. Love that. So I've got my hot pads on. We're going to carefully flip this out. My lobster claws. And then set it down on the cooling rack. And I'm going to set it this way. My mother-in-law taught me this trick that the cooling rack gives you perfect slices if you put it the right way on a cooling rack. So this cooling rack has the top ones going the length of this. So I'm going to put the loaf of bread on these pins, and then as it cools, it will have those marks on there. So then I can take my bread knife and I can cut on those slices, and it is the perfect slice every time. So there's our loaf of bread. It looks absolutely delicious. We're going to let this cool for just a few minutes, and then we'll slice it and I'll show you what the inside looks like. All right, we've let it cool. Not long enough, but you can kind of see the lines showing up on the bread there. Okay, so they're there. They're not super pronounced because we didn't let this cool fully. So I'm just gonna cut the end off so you can see what it looks like. It's not a super hard crust. It's a nice soft crust. You could slather butter on this if you want and then bake it for a few more minutes. I don't do that because it makes the crust a little too soft. Look at that. Nice fine crumb there, right? Not super heavy at all. I mean, this when we weighed it, it was 1 pound and 1.5 pounds. It weighs that. It's not a heavy dough. Look at that. Ooh, love this stuff. My kids used to cut the end off and hollow it out from the inside and then put it up against the other loaf so we wouldn't see that it had been hollowed out, or that I wouldn't see that it had been hollowed out. That used to infuriate me. Oof. But this bread is our go-to bread for Christmas time. We make what's called Christmas meat, and that recipe is also in our Family Favorites cookbook. It's absolutely delicious. Mm. Mm. This is such a comfort food for me. Sorry. There you have it, folks. The easy, Super easy, super delicious Amish white bread sandwich bread that is super versatile. You can make it in many different ways. We did a loaf of bread today. There's going to be other videos that show other ways to make this. Super delicious. Love this bread. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't hesitate, don't hesitate to share it with your friends and family. And please don't hesitate also to like and subscribe. It truly helps our family out. I'm Christa with the Big Family Homestead, and you have a blessed and amazing day.